Welcome back to another episode of the Seric Show. My name is Spencer Van Winters, and I was the first one to draw Bugs Bunny.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, why do you name him Bugs Bunny?
Let's not go into it. It's not that deep, man.
I want to.
It's not that deep. It's not that deep. It's not that deep.
All right, fair enough. And I'm Eric, and I'm just your average, ordinary, everyday superhero. You know, trying to save the world, but never really sure. You know. Anyways, that's me.
All right, that's fair enough. How much do you? What do you do to save the world?
I mean, just average stuff. You know, like I'll carpool sometimes. I mean, not now, but you know, on occasion. You know,
ride your bike everywhere.
I mean, sometimes. I mean, I'm like an average. I'm not like stellar, but
not
like,
too. Okay. Fair
yeah,
enough.
I try to use the recycling and compost when I can, if it's close by. You know.
Unreal. So, what are we going to be talking about here today, Eric?
Oh, I mean, plenty of stuff. But I think the most important thing is that there's actual, well, not quite concrete yet, but at least some movement towards
hockey news in general.
News.
Yeah. Yes. I think the main thing we should talk about first is the 2014 playoff format, which was unveiled to the public. It's not determined yet as a foolproof thing. It's not set in stone yet, but it seems pretty exciting. I mean, what do you think of the 24 team playoff format? Like, without even going into it, like just on the surface, what do you think of it?
I think it is good, but not great. I think it covers most of the bases, but there are a couple teams that kind of got the short end of the stick. But I mean, it's not. There's no perfect solution to any situation as complex as this. So, I mean, they've done a pretty good job. But
yeah, I mean, the interesting part about like saying that like a lot of teams got the short end of the stick, which they did in terms of standings and such. But it's interesting that only all 31 out of all 31 teams, only Tampa Bay and Carolina disagreed with going forth with the 2014 playoff format. So why do you think that is?
Well, I actually kind of read some articles about each team and their specific situation. Okay. I think, but mainly it may be surprising to some people, but it didn't have to do with the fact that they were returning to play at all. So I think overall, the majority of players do want to come back and play in whatever format.
100%. If it's safe, of course. You can't come back if it's not safe. Like Mitch Marner has definitely expressed that in on like live streams and such, where he was like, he even went to the most extreme point, which was like, what if someone dies in the league, right? What are we supposed to do then? And that's a realistic thing that could happen. I mean, you see people who are young and healthy that get sick from this virus, and sometimes it beats them, and that's like it always, obviously it's circumstantial, but it's obviously a concern for any person that could possibly get it, and you don't want to put yourself in a way of harm, and being in a room of 24 guys all the time and sweating and pushing into each other, that can cause some medical concerns for some players, and I think that's the biggest thing holding people back, especially ones with families and things to go back on and have to support, because they don't want to end up getting sick, right? So
well, I think you're right. I mean, we don't have to get too much into the medical
of course,
but,
yeah.
I mean, that's not really, that hasn't been put on the table yet. They're still early on in the process. It's not like players are refusing to go back because of the family situations right now. But obviously that is something the league has to make sure is all taken care of, especially with hockey. I mean, it's very close quarters, and it's indoors, which is why it might be more difficult than like the NFL or MLB returning, because the open air is better for ventilation, and just, you know, there's more space there. Players aren't kept as close together. So the path is a little bit more difficult.
It's why the Bundesliga has been able to come back. The German soccer league, if you don't know what the Bundesliga is, it's the highest ranked soccer league in Germany, and usually has like tens of thousands of people attending each game, and they're playing without fans, and it seems to be working right now. I mean, it's only the start of it. It's only been like 2 or 3 weeks into the start of the Bundesliga again, but still, it's just something to think about. I'm not saying it's like the main reason. I'm just saying it's like it can't be something that is forgotten, and it's definitely poking in the back of players' minds. I can't help but think that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think I think the best way to kind of talk about the format is just if we just kind of explain
back
it,
into the format, yes,
and then we'll and then we can talk about the pros and cons and why the two teams ended up voting against it and what we kind of think about it. So.
Okay, so these are some of the things that I wrote down in terms of my understanding of the 2014 playoffs. Format is the top 4 seeds in each conference are given byes into the playoffs, while the other 16 teams enter a best-of-5 round to determine their opponents for the next round coming. If you don't make it past the first round, you don't make the playoffs. So if you lose that first round to get into the first round of the playoffs, then you're out and you don't make the playoffs technically. So what do you do you agree with that so far, or what?
I mean,
like, do you like it? Like, it's weird to say, do you agree with it? But.
I mean, that so far makes sense because you need to have games before the playoffs start, before elimination games come in, at least somewhat. It's not perfect, but it's probably the best they could hope for. In this case, I think more of the issues come up with the amount of teams and picking 24 instead of a different number. But the fact, having the kind of play-in round, the top seeds have their spot, have kind of a bye and everything. I think that's a smart idea to do, and having the little play-in round should be exciting at least.
I always I imagine the play-in round to kind of be like a simulation of the teams that were like fighting for playoff spots, like the simulation of the last stretch where teams are playing as hard as they can to get in the playoffs in order to replicate that same like movement, so players get back to the speed that they want to be going into the first round. It's kind of like what you said. It's kind of like a warm-up almost, but it counts towards the standings in the league, and it really does matter, but it kind of is a way of the league warming up again into what should be is considered the real playoffs. So they're yet to agree on whether it'll be like a like the playoff bracket will be determined by bracketing or seeding, if that makes any sense. Good teams obviously want seeding because they'll face worse teams, but bracketing is, I'll explain it now, is basically teams will be placed against each other, such as Pittsburgh and Montreal, and then they will face the 4th seed. But you say what you need to say first before we go into that. Yeah.
Well, just essentially, just to help kind of clarify there.
It's kind of hard to explain.
It's still broken up basically into the conferences at first. So in each conference with 24 teams in the playoffs, there's 12 teams. And the first 4 would get a bye, or not have to be in the play-in round, but they would still be playing games against each other in a round robin. And then from 5 through 12, that would be the best of 5 play-in series. So in your case, it was Pittsburgh, who's the 5th ranked team, against Montreal, who would be 12th, and then 6 versus 11. 7.
So on and so forth, and then basically the teams that were like 5 and 12th will face off against the teams that were the top 4 seeds basically, and they will be determined first, second, third, and fourth by playing each other. Is that right or no?
Yeah, there's a round robin for the top 4 teams. In this case, let's just stick with Montreal versus Pittsburgh. They have their series, and there'll be the 4 playoff series, and then the round robin in each conference. And from there, it goes into rankings of how well the teams did in the round robin versus the rank of the teams that are left. So Pittsburgh's ranked 5. If Montreal wins, they're ranked 12, so they would have to face probably the number 1 ranked team in the round robin.
The fourth seed. They have to face the 4th seed. Sorry about that. I pressed the stop recording button like an idiot. So we were talking about how Pittsburgh versus Montreal could be facing off in the round robin play. And then it could be. What were you going to say? Sorry.
Oh, well, okay. So the round robin is between the top 4 teams in each conference.
Yes.
So Boston, Tampa Bay, Washington, and Philly for the East. Then Dallas, Vegas, Colorado, and St. Louis for the West. They're in the round robin. Then there's the play-in series. So like the mini playoffs, the play-in.
They're called that's what I meant to say. Sorry,
Just to clarify, so it could be a little confusing, as you can tell.
Yeah, they're very similar, Okay, so
I think the easiest kind of link up is like in the wild card game in baseball, where you have the 2 teams facing off to go to the playoffs. This is it. They're not going to really call these play-in series as part of the playoffs, I don't think. But, it's the winners go on to the actual 16-team normal playoff format.
Yeah, exactly.
And do you want to just run down the Western Conference?
Yeah, so the Western Conference would be Edmonton versus Chicago. It would be then Nashville versus the Arizona Coyotes. Vancouver Canucks versus the Minnesota Wild, which I think would be a steamroll by the Vancouver Canucks. And then Calgary versus Winnipeg. So then again, it'd be Edmonton, Chicago versus the 4th seed, would be facing the 4th seed, and so on and so forth down to number 1 from the order I said earlier. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do any of these series really stick out to you?
Like the one I'm excited about is obviously the Toronto series, because I think it'd be interesting to play against the Columbus Blue Jackets in the play-in series, because it'd be a best of 5, and afterwards this 5 game play-in, it would return to 7 games. That's what they're saying it would return to, so it'd be like normal, kind of as normal as we can get right now. But I think as I said earlier, I like the Vancouver's odds against Minnesota. I think I'd just like to watch that just to see Vancouver absolutely like destroy Minnesota. I think they would. But
I think it would be a tighter series than maybe people think, because Minnesota was actually one of the hottest teams before the break. They kind of came from out of nowhere.
Really?
I mean, they ended up firing Boudreau, and they went on a pretty good run all the way up to 10th in the conference, and they were, I think 1 or 2 points based on points percentage and stuff. Like they were right in that playoff race, and they're also a pretty stingy team. As long as Devin Dubnyk, he had an up and down year. He had dealing with some things off the ice as well, I think, with his wife. So understandable stuff. But as long as they get goaltending. They had some players starting to play really well, like Kevin Fiala, and their defense was really good. I think it would be a great first test for this young Vancouver team in the playoffs. I think Vancouver probably would. I think they still have a good chance of winning, but 5 games is also, that's obviously shorter than most series.
Yeah.
So.
And people, we can't forget that everyone's coming in cold. Right, everyone's in the same position.
Mm-hmm.
Even if there are people coming back from injuries, it doesn't bar the fact that people probably haven't been skating unless you're in Europe, and have been sitting around, also working out as much as you can. But there's only so much you can do, especially when hockey is such a muscle memory sport, where it's like instinct and it's fast paced, and if you're not like your fast twitch muscle fibers aren't used to the pace that they were used to going at, then you're going to be slower. You're not going to be able to go as fast as as you used to. So things might not be the same. People might be more prone to injury. Like there are so many things that are especially the older players. Like you just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, everyone's really excited. People coming back from injury, and everyone's going to play hockey again. Hopefully. It's not determined yet, but it's just like there's so many things that we're scared about too, which is kind of funny.
Oh yeah.
We tend to dramatize, I think, of or catastrophize. Sorry.
Yeah, I think looking at these series, what sticks out first is how weak the West looks to me.
Yeah.
I think especially the play-in series, Oilers at a 5th seed. Okay, I mean they have two of the best players in the world, but beyond that, I don't know about the depth for a long playoff run. Nashville in 6. I mean, they've had a terrible season.
Yeah, I don't.
They fired their coach and hired someone that's like playing Philip Forsberg on the 4th line.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
He signed a 3-year contract extension too.
Yeah.
Like when he signed, it was a 3-year contract. Yeah. So the West to me is wide open. I think it's especially with how hot Pittsburgh has been and being able to like deal with injuries and stuff. Carolina had a solid season with injuries as well. The Islanders obviously great in the playoffs last year. Leafs and Jackets, like even those teams, it seems like a team in the West that might not match up as well against some Eastern teams might have an easier path through because kind of the relative strength in the West is a little easier. And I think that bodes well for the 4 teams in the West with in the round robin: St. Louis, Colorado, Vegas, Dallas, because they do seem like a step above the other teams and who they would be playing, which just means that it should be easier for them to win a round. Obviously, it's playoff hockey; you don't know, but it should be easier for them to win a round.
Exactly. But just so I'm hearing it correctly, you are confirming that you are saying an Eastern Conference team will win the Stanley Cup this year.
No, that's not. I'm saying that I think a Western team might, because they don't have to face as many good teams along the way.
So they won't be as tired, they won't be as beaten up. Okay.
Exactly, and just probability-wise, if you're playing a weaker team, you have a better percentage chance of moving on to the next round and moving on and stuff. So statistically, it just means a little bit better for St. Louis versus Boston, because Boston's going to have to face probably at least a little bit better team than St. Louis.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. So is there anything you wanted to add again for the 2014 playoff format?
Yeah, I love the Carolina versus the Rangers matchup. Okay. That should be high scoring, fun, fast hockey between two teams. I love watching those two teams.
I love Carolina very much. They're a really good team.
And the Rangers, I mean, they were so hot in the new year. They got Shesterkin, Zibanejad went on a tear, so they could really make some noise, I think, and surprise people. So those are two very good teams. It's unfortunate that it has to be a first-round matchup, but it should be very good. And on the other side, I don't like how Nashville's been playing this year. Don't really like the construction of Arizona. So I think
I was to say Arizona.
Both those teams, I think, kind of benefits from being matched up with each other, because I don't think either is particularly great.
So they'll be like at even strength almost. Like one's not way better than the other, and then the other, but they're not going to beat each other up like a better team would. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Okay.
Like I would take either the Leafs or the Jackets against both of the teams, and probably same with Calgary, maybe Winnipeg. So I think the fact that Nashville somehow got into that 6th seed from the way they've been playing this year, it's pretty surprising.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Not about that particular format. Should we go on to like what we think about it overall?
Yeah. I just want to see hockey. I think that's what most people are really saying right now at this point, is we're tired of sitting around seeing nothing. But obviously, as clearly exhibited, I am concerned for the health factors. But I love this idea of like trying something new. I think it's interesting that and the NHL being so boring usually and kind of mainstream and to the book is kind of like pushing outside the boundaries and trying new things that they think could be fair but also fun. I think that's good for the sport in general. I think it draws attraction from people who aren't really hockey fans, because this is something new. It's like March Madness. Like I don't like basketball that much, but I will watch March Madness because it's so much fun to watch, and it's so crazy how things can turn out. And this is the exact same thing. As you said, like it will be easier on paper for a Western Conference team to make it to the Stanley Cup, and that will be interesting for teams that like aren't expected to go that far but end up doing that because they're up against weaker teams. So
yeah, just like the World Cup, I'd say, especially like at this side of the world, MLS is great, and watching the Premier League and Champions League and stuff is getting more popular, which is great for football.
Yeah, I
know you get mad at me.
I'm a big Liverpool fan.
but it's cool that people can get so passionate about it. Every 4 years, they love it. It's exciting.
Even the Women's World Cup is getting bigger and bigger, which is really nice to see. So
yeah, but I think for me, and I know other people feel the same way, I think that the most important, obviously the most important part is that everything's done in a safe way, and they can guarantee the safety of the players and all involved, because that's paramount. That's number one. And beyond that, I think it's making sure that the format is fair, and I think that's kind of been called into question because a team like literally Montreal Canadiens would not have been close to a playoff spot before the break.
No.
They had their points percentage was 500. Their points percentage, even in the days of the loser point, it was 500. Yeah. So they weren't going to sniff the playoffs. Chicago was not going to sniff the playoffs in all likelihood. No. And it kind of calls into question whether this would still be a 24-team format if those weren't two original 6 franchises with a large fan base, and being able to generate a lot of money. Okay. I mean, the Rangers as well, even though I think they're a really good team, they had a very tough path to the playoffs. And so
I don't really think you can blame them right now for trying to generate as much money as possible, especially in a world where money is going to be hard to come by in terms of revenue from fans, especially like seating and stuff like that for the next foreseeable future. So I can't blame them too much for at least trying to attract as much as you can, like when you don't have as much as you used to. Do you know what I mean? Like
I don't know, because it's I don't know if as you said, though, I think the fact that hockey is back and sports would be back is the draw more than those teams. And I think it's
fair enough.
A little unfair to assume that, if it was Arizona, Florida, New Jersey or something, like those teams were the ones on the bubble, that they wouldn't cut it down, because 20 teams, if you look at points percentage, those are the teams that were in the race. Yeah. I mean, we're 8 to 10 games from the end of the season when the shutdown happened. And the 20 teams would pretty much encompass all the teams that had a real, high chance of actually making the playoffs. And a similar format still could have been done with the 20 teams, having it be the top 3 teams get a bye and then a play-in between the 4 and 5. Top 3 teams in each division, I should say. Okay. So, sort of like in how now, there's 3 divisional seeds, and then the wild card teams in each conference. It would basically be a series to fight to be one of the wild card teams.
Okay.
So seeing that format, I just thought that was a little bit more fair. And statistically, a lot of the teams that kind of have been hurt most by this format is Toronto, because obviously they would be the 3rd seed in that. And then they'd be facing
facing the first seed against. In the round robin against the team that came first in the round robin, so that's kind of unfair. But
yeah, and Pittsburgh, who's a very important U.S. market as well, and Edmonton, because they were obviously 5th in the West, so they definitely would have been a bye with the league's most marketable player. Because the issue is the play-in series, but the play-in series, that's not counted as the playoffs.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier.
It's weird, but it's true. So there's a chance that Toronto, Pittsburgh, Edmonton had great seasons. Pittsburgh is 5th in the conference, Edmonton is 5th in the conference, but they might not make the playoffs because they're allowing a team like Montreal in, who didn't really they weren't close to
which is what I was about to say. Yeah,
series.
Which is what I was about to say is that teams like Chicago, Montreal can get on runs, and if they do, because it Taves, Kane, DeBrincat, Strome, like these guys can play hockey. They're good hockey players, and even though Chicago hasn't shown up really throughout the regular season as much as years past, they still have pieces that could put together a winning team, especially when defense might not be as big as a priority as it usually is, because teams are going to still be trying to get their feet back after sitting around for so long. So like people like defense is going to be hard in the first place. So I think it might benefit high score, like not just high scoring teams. I'm not saying I don't know if Chicago's a high scoring team, but teams that have the potential to score a lot because of the talent they have. I think that they could do well, especially because even if you look at Montreal, they have the best goalie in the world. And what happens if he goes back to Team Canada, Carey Price, and just stops literally everything and is a brick wall, and then Montreal wins the cup? Like, that could happen too. Like, it's all very fair. Like, that's the interesting part. That's exciting in a way, but I see why you don't like it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it would be exciting to see if Detroit or Ottawa were still allowed in it, and could somehow make a run.
Okay.
But I think a little bit it kind of downplays the importance of the regular season that they played. They played most of it, right? They played most of it. They played over 70 games each team. I think 74, 75 was the average. So, I mean, they were very close. I think you're right. I think that a lot of people actually expected Pittsburgh to be one of the teams that voted no because of the fact that they would have to play against Carey Price in a best-of-5 series. So they only have to lose 3 games against, a team that didn't really, based on their regular season performance, deserve to be there. Like, they didn't really earn the right. Yeah. Not that they're not a good team. I like Montreal as a team. They play the Leafs very hard. But, it is based on points and how you do in the regular season. It should be important. So,
to be fair, though, I feel like there would be, even though it's irrational to say that teams that probably shouldn't make the playoffs because of points percentage and such, or the points differential between making a playoffs and not, and like in terms of like third versus fourth or fourth versus fifth, I think it would be hard to. I think all the teams that were like not really in it, but like felt like they were being cheated, would have fought back against not having them in the playoffs. Do you know what I mean? Like teams like Montreal, teams like Arizona. Do you not think that they would be like, hey, why are you giving up on us? Like, why not give us a chance? Like, don't you think that there would be any like pushback against the league for that? And that's why they went with this, is because it just stops the most chaos from ensuing. Because think about all the Montreal's marketplace. If they had the 24 team playoff in like speculation, and then they went with something completely different and wiped them out, Montreal would be like, what the hell? Like, we heard about this 24 team playoff that could work perfectly fine, and there'd be uproar. Do you know what I mean? I think that could be part of it. I'm speculating completely. I have no way of knowing any of this, but I'm just like, I think that could be an argument for it.
I think that's dangerous.
Yeah, I'm not saying I agree with that.
That line of thinking is what led Edmonton to draft Nail Yakupov. I mean, their scouts and everything literally wanted to draft Ryan Murray, the defenseman,
which is still not much better.
Their owner overrode them because all the fans wanted Yakupov, and they didn't want to face the backlash.
Yeah.
So doing something just because you're worried about public perception, even though it might not be the right thing to do, I think is always a dangerous line. And I think it's tough. I mean, Chicago, they traded away Robin Lehner, right? Like, they traded him away. You don't do that when you're expecting a playoff run.
No.
And Montreal had less points than Chicago. The Rangers I love, but, they were, once again, not quite in it. Arizona as well, they had fallen off because of some injuries, not the most fair situation, but obviously that's a smaller market as well.
Taylor Hall not having as good as a year as he had when he was with New Jersey, won the MVP. I mean, that's one of the things I think Arizona was counting on this season is Taylor Hall being a big piece for them, and he wasn't really at all.
I think he got a bad rap because right when he got there, Darcy Kemper got injured.
Okay, so their starting goalie went down, and he had like a .940 save percentage at the beginning of the season.
Oh yeah,
he had amazing. I think he had a .946 or something stupid.
So it's unfortunate, and it's kind of hilarious that New Jersey actually had a better record than Arizona did after trading. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty funny. But anyway, just to kind of finish up the perspective on the format and stuff. Another reason the Lightning weren't a huge fan is because the teams in the round robin with the bye, the top 4 teams would be less prepared, they felt, than the teams in the play-in series.
Which is why they added the round robin.
But also, they thought that even with the round robin, they wouldn't be as prepared.
It's the same,
like do or die
but
games.
It's the same thing as what the other teams are getting. That doesn't make sense.
Yep, I don't agree with
That's an unfair argument.
No,
I'm not saying
This is because the Tampa Bay Lightning played about half the season last year of non-important games, and then got their ass kicked by a team, Columbus, that were playing important games down the stretch. So this, to me, I don't like this as a Tampa Bay fan because this is saying that they're afraid of that happening again. They're not going to work their ass off. They're not just going to say no. We're not going to let this happen. They're kind of worried.
Well, of course
and they're
they're
like,
worried.
No, come on.
Yeah.
Don't let us. Don't let us play less games, even though a best of 5 series could be over in 3 games, the same length as the round robin, same amount of games, right? So, in 3 to 5 games, like that's not a big difference.
Yeah.
So, to me, that's pretty. I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with it as all, and it's not like you're not. I know practice isn't the same as games, but you're still getting practice time, I assume, on the ice with your team. It's not like you're not skating. It's not like you're sitting around doing nothing. Like, if teams are able to play each other, I assume there's an ability for you to go and practice with your team. So it's not like you're not working out or not skating or not shooting a puck. Like, I don't understand why, like, it's so unfair to... okay, that's it. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, because as we were saying, so... this would be taking place in 4 different hub cities, kind of divided up, and each city needs to have, I think, a certain number of ice surfaces other than the main one that they play on. So teams will practice in different facilities.
Exactly.
So they will have that resource.
Exactly. So I don't see why there's even an argument for that. So.
Yeah, and Carolina, they're. A lot of the reason it does make sense from their standpoint, as far as feeling that there's inequity there, kind of unfair, because they went from having an 80% chance to make the playoffs to a coin flip series against a Rangers team that was 4-0 against them in the regular season,
and are fast, young.
That's a little scary,
and
which I
they
don't
have
think
a good young
attitude.
goalie too. They have 2 great young goalies and a future Hall of Famer if they need, just up in the rafters somewhere.
Yeah.
Like what team has that? What team has 3 goalies right now?
Yeah, and I would, if I'm Carolina, I would have any of those 3 goalies over Mrazek
or Reimer.
Well, yeah, I love James,
I
but
know,
I think
but he's not. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I get that a little bit more because you go from 80% chance to make the playoffs to essentially 50-50 because once again, the play-in is not the play-off.
Exactly.
That'll be after they win that series. So that makes sense.
So would that mean that the teams that don't make the playoffs, that lose the play-in, have a chance at winning the draft lottery? Does that mean that?
Very good question. And I think that's going to have to be part of the next development.
Because I was just thinking, because if you made this play-in, are you considered, obviously it's more than, like the top 15 teams have a chance at getting the first overall pick. But with this new format, I don't know what they would like. Would that be different, or would they just consider them not making the playoffs and that's what they stick with? Like that's like we said earlier, this isn't considered. You don't just because you made the play-in doesn't mean you made the playoffs. So does that mean that you are one of the 15 teams that are eligible for the draft lottery? That would make sense, wouldn't it?
It's funny. It really is because that makes sense. I mean, they're not in the 16-team playoffs. But they're given a fair chance of making it. So I really don't know what they would do. But I think that decision's coming. That decision is going to come.
I hope so.
because a lot of people in the NHL, well, some people in the NHL want a June draft. They don't want to move the draft back. So that decision would need to get made soon if they're going to be able to do the draft and how everything works. Clock's a ticket. So. I think that's something to keep in mind as well, because the playoffs can be pushed back a certain amount, but I mean the draft's going to have to happen at some point this year. That's a question I think they need to be asking themselves too. I don't have 100%. A good answer. That's just a good question.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So I think that's done for the 2014 playoff format. You think? Okay.
Yeah, I think overall. I mean, I took the contrarian approach for it and pointing out the bad sides, but I mean I just want to see some hockey. Obviously it's not ideal, but I don't think it was ideal for most of those teams. 29 voted yes. The two other ones, they still want to get back to playing hockey. Everyone does, as long as it's safe. So even though I was sounding pretty negative, I think it's a great thing if they can get back to playing and everyone's okay and safe and they can kind of provide some entertainment during these times. Where people could really use, a nice pick-me-up and kind of a distraction from everything else that's going on.
No kidding. What I was going to bring up next was one of the interesting things coming up because of the COVID thing, if I've mentioned this on past podcasts, is the free agency frenzy that will inevitably happen this coming summer or whenever the off-season is. Yeah, exactly. So when in terms of, I was going to talk about in terms of how much teams are willing to pay players in free agency this coming off season will be vastly different from previous years due to the fact that teams won't feel like they can commit as much money to players for term. So a lot of players will be signing shorter term deals, maybe for more money or maybe for less money, just for the 1 year, just to play with a good team. So I have a couple of the names that I thought really stood out to me that could really have a chance at moving somewhere and I think making an impact, or even just one of my players I chose was just like, what the heck is he gonna do? Do you know what I mean? Okay. So my first player, who I'm very interested in, is $6.5 million a year. Alex Pietrangelo is an unrestricted free agent this coming off-season, and he is a big right-handed defenseman, captain of his team, plays on Team Canada. There's a very limited amount of people in the world that can say that. He's unbelievable. Scored that goal in the finals to win the cup with St. Louis. Yeah, what else do you have to say about that guy?
I mean, he's great. I'd say top 10 defenseman for sure.
Where do you a long term? Sorry, I was just gonna say, like, where do you think you could see him moving? Like, what team would be able to pick him up? Do you think?
I think there's an 80% chance he goes back. Yeah. And 80% feels low to me, and the only reason is because of the kind of perplexing Justin Falk trade and extension that they handed out. Because he's another. I mean, they're paying him to be a top 4 defenseman on the right side, so there's a little surprising. And those essentially insurance in case he doesn't sign, but I don't think that sends a great message.
Especially to your captain.
Yeah. But I do think he wants to sign and he wants to stay in St. Louis. Yeah. So I think that's definitely the most likely situation.
They have a good
as much
team.
As I'd love if he somehow comes back to Toronto. I mean, I think St. Louis is the situation for him, and I think that's where he's going to
I don't think Dubas is that good at negotiating.
No, but I do think that he's he might be the rare case where he still gets a long-term contract because I don't think, especially re-signing with his same team as the captain, I don't think they're going to be afraid about committing long-term to him because he's such an important member of their franchise and community. I think they probably already had negotiations, so I think he'll still get probably a 6-7 year deal. Yeah. Maybe 8. 8 seems a little long because he's
how much money
29
do you think
or 30
he could
now.
Make on the open market? But this is a different year, right? I mean, we don't really have a frame of reference in terms of how much the highest player would go for in this market, but I wouldn't assume it's too much less. Same as, yeah.
I think he gets the same as Roman Josi.
Okay, so how much was that?
Because Josi was also a free agent. He re-signed for 8 years at I think 9 million, maybe 9.5. One of the two.
Okay, that seems reasonable for Pietrangelo.
It was like 9.05.
9.05. Okay, I would definitely sign Pietrangelo to that. It would have to be for shorter term considering his age, but I think that Pietrangelo for the next 2 to 3 years could be a productive Alex Pietrangelo.
But the issue is to try to sign that to a shorter deal. Is Josi is the same age as Pietrangelo,
yeah.
And so
Josi kind of got a wacky contract, didn't he? For all that, for how many years is it?
It's like 7 or 8.
Yeah, well, I don't see Pietrangelo getting 7 years. Do you?
I think if you're Pietrangelo, why wouldn't you ask for it? I mean, you're the same age as Josi. You're saying, he's also the captain of the team. I think they're very comparable players. I think if you're Pietrangelo and his agency, you're saying, why shouldn't we get the same?
Okay, fair enough.
I think he's the comparable, especially Nashville doesn't pay their players that much. Yosi's the highest paid player in their history, so
that's pretty good.
Well, this contract will be the highest. So, I mean, I don't see. I think they're very comparable situations at least. So I think if you're going to give Josi that much, Pietrangelo is probably going to ask for it. Maybe he gets like 1 year less. He's a little less mobile, and as a skater as he ages. But I mean, you're going to ask for it.
Okay. Yep. Fair enough. Torrey Krug, $5.2 million, which was a bargain deal for a guy that runs their power play.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great player. That's a big one because I could see him moving if offered the right deal. Because I feel like obviously Boston is very, very good and they still have a lot of young good players, but those players need to be paid as well. And so do you as Torrey Krug, do you go, hey, these guys are coming, should I just sign short term with Boston and figure out that in a couple of years, or do I sign with a different team for longer term, or even Boston for longer term if you want to risk having a worse team potentially? Do you know what I mean? If a team has a salary cap, and I don't think Boston really does have a lot of salary cap, do they?
No, I mean they've signed pretty good contracts.
Okay.
I mean, Pasternak's a steal. He's
that was ridiculous, but
but I don't really. I think Krejci's the highest contract on that team, and it's like 7.5.
Okay.
So that's ending soon.
Bergeron.
In my opinion, this is how I see Krug's situation playing out. I'm going to put my little fantasy hat on here. This is how I see it. I see a 2 or 3 year contract back in Boston.
Okay.
And then I see him going to Detroit. He's a Michigan boy. He went to Michigan State as well. And in 2 to 3 years,
Laffy if he goes there.
Depending on what happens in this draft and the next, hopefully Detroit will be on the way up. And I could see that happening. I think
I wouldn't doubt it.
Need a great defenseman. He could play with Hronek maybe on the top pair if Hronek's still around, or another top defenseman. I think that's my scenario because I don't see a clear fit for him and a reason to move on from Boston.
That's what I was saying.
Right
That's what I was saying. Like the short term doesn't. I would feel it out and be like, what's going to happen in a couple of years? That's why I wouldn't sign too long term, just because I don't see like Bergeron's going to retire, Marchand's going to retire, Chara's going to retire, Rask is going to retire. Like And then what?
Well, I think Bergeron is going to keep playing, but he won't be as useful. I want to see how old Marchand is.
Yeah, but I'm not saying. I'm just
32.
saying, like, if you sign a 7-year deal, those guys aren't going to be around for the entirety of that contract. So all that depth that you have right now isn't going to be the same in a couple of years. So as a player, I wouldn't wanna. I would try to be like, okay, I'll see how it goes, but I'll sign short term here because I believe in what we have right now. But I'm not too sure about the next couple of years for Boston. Hopefully.
Yeah, because in a couple of years, Krejci and Bergeron will be old, and they don't really have any centermen like ready to hop
Charlie
up and
Coyle,
replace them.
But he's getting older too.
Like, yeah, at best he's a second line center. So I mean, and it's hard when your team constantly in the playoffs. It's hard to get those. Get a top
they had
center.
Those 3 in a row, but they fluffed every single one except for one. And they got DeBrusk, but they got Shinishin, DeBrusk, and Zubril. Soybril, whatever his name is.
And they were 1 win away from a cup last year. Just imagine if they had Barzal, Besser, Chabot.
Yeah.
Kyle Connor was around there too.
Yeah, that would have been the most ridiculous team.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think he stays for the short term. Mm-hmm. Long term, he'll find.
See him moving on. Okay. So Robin Lehner, $5 million because he's getting paid by the Leafs, and by who else is it? Chicago.
And
the Leafs are so his he's getting paid $5 million right now. What teams could use a goal? I think Arizona, if Kemper can't replicate what he has done this season, but I don't see why he wouldn't be able to. So I don't. Actually, they have Raanta as well. They have Hill.
They have Kemper and Raanta.
Hill can play. Yeah. Actually, Arizona's goalies aren't too bad. But they're not.
I know who I think would be a good fit.
Okay.
Because I signed him in my NHL 20 franchise mode, playing as this team, which is Carolina Hurricanes. I think he'd be a real good fit there. Young team, youthful energy. Yeah. Kind of replacing Mrazek. That would be a definite upgrade.
He's great with good defense, as we saw in New York. When he was at the Islanders, when he had a good defensive core, he was in the nominations for the Vezina, right? And
even this year with Chicago, not a great defensive team, he still had great.
Exactly, defense. And even in Vegas, he had good stats. I'm pretty sure. But so Lehner's just like a solid, I say starting goalie. So I think he could go around what he's making now because he's getting up there in age. He's not the young Robin Lehner where you're accustomed to. I think he's like 28, right? He's not. So 28. So I mean, you don't sign him to too long because I don't think he's going to be able to. And goalies are weird, so you don't want to sign them for too long unless you're crazy like Montreal, or Florida. But so I think he could go around like $6 million to like a team like Carolina, like you said.
Yeah, I really feel for him though. Because,
great guy. Not just great guy. I don't know the guy, but like good story, So.
Yeah, but it's unfortunate because he had battles with, dealing with bipolar and everything, and then I know that he really liked his time with the Islanders and really wanted to stay, but he wasn't offered any long-term contracts, and he was really offended by that. He had to take a 1-year contract with Chicago. But for him and his life and everything, what's best for him is he wanted long-term stability. And again, when he still had another great season, replicated last year's success, because of the current climate, he might not also get that long-term stability and long-term contract that he might otherwise get. I mean, being 28, that's not super old in a regular situation. But for now, I mean, I don't know.
You want to spend your money wisely in this market right now, and I think that teams will be a little bit more cautious than before. So the next player I have is $6.1 million, Braden Holtby, who set a playoff record, I believe, with save percentage. He's an unbelievable goalie. Won the Vezina. Has a Stanley Cup to his name. Just what doesn't he?
Wait, a record at save percentage?
I'm pretty sure in the playoffs he had like a 946% save percentage. It was like a record. I remember hearing that when I was
You sure?
when I was listening to a Braden Holtby documentary, not documentary, like video.
Because I know that Quick had a ridiculous save percentage.
I'm pretty sure it was Holtby, but.
Okay, well maybe, but
I don't know, but I remember hearing that somewhere. But if that's not true, still his pedigree speaks for itself. His
his all-time save percentage is .928, which is one of the highest.
What about playoffs?
But
it was like a year or two ago, so it might not be the same now, but it was like a year or two ago.
Let's see. Yeah, it was 944, but that wasn't the record.
Okay.
Quick had 946.
Never mind then.
But,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, still very good. Obviously.
Okay. Whatever. Wrong, but
it was fewer games, however, because he did actually not start that playoff run.
Yeah.
Grubauer was in.
You're right, for the first little bit. Yeah.
Time a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, still 13 games and high pressure situations.
A 944 is still. I'd take any goalie with a 944 save percentage. So. But yeah, I think on a normal climate, at least $8 million for a goalie like that. But right now, I don't know.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that wasn't during the playoff run. That was their Stanley Cup run.
No. It was a different season. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
But still, yeah. Quick had the full 20-game Stanley Cup run, and he was insane.
Oh yeah, I remember that. He was. I just remember looking like a crab in the net. Like that's what really wanted me to like be a really good goalie, like and really wanted me to be a goalie was Jonathan Quick. Just because like when I was watching him, I was like, oh my god, this is so much fun to watch, and like it was so cool. Yeah, that was. He was just the most athletic person I've ever seen in that moment for that cup run, like just making ridiculous saves. But yeah. Anyways, Braden Holtby, I think, could make around what he's making right now just because there might be a pay cut to what he would originally make, which I said would probably be around 8, I think. What would you say?
I mean, probably because of his pedigree, but I'm not sure if that would be... I mean, he struggled this season, for sure. I think he was outplayed by Samsonov for the majority of the time, and his last regular season, well, even when they won the Cup, obviously, I mean, Grubauer had the starting job at the start of the playoffs.
Because of the way he played in the regular season, at the end of the regular season.
But yeah, I think goalies are voodoo, and no one has been able to really understand how, like, who is a starting goalie and which goaltender to take out of a situation. A lot of times, how to draft a goalie. It's for the most part, just estimations and everything. So I think a GM would still bet on his track record without being able to have really any other good measure to base it off of. So I think you're right. I think he'd still get a decent chunk. But I'm not sure if it can be in Washington.
No. Because I think Samsonov has really taken that spot. And with the expansion draft coming up, even though I think Samsonov would be exempt because he's too young. But... yeah. But anyways, I think that Samsonov.
Oh no! Actually, sorry, he's
not. Okay, so that's
they would have.
So there's another reason why you should probably. Why they probably wouldn't be able to sign him or wouldn't sign him, just because if you sign this goalie, then there's a possibility of losing him or Samsonov for free when you could use him. Just I don't know. Yeah. So my next player was Markstrom. Same situation. I was going to say, yeah.
But I mean, he's been better recently. but a lot smaller sample size and hasn't done in the playoffs.
And
so
Markstrom's only
weird.
making 3.667.
Yeah, with the way he played, he would normally be looking at a nice
5 million that, even. But I could see Markstrom making at least 5 million. And what's Freddie Anderson
normally
making? 5.2, 5.1, something like that. So I could say Markstrom, Freddie Anderson, pretty similar in terms of importance to their team. I think that's the way you look at it as a Vancouver general manager, or so the person that's signing his contract, is that like Markstrom has been one of the big reasons why they've been good this year. So,
but it's also that the Anderson contract was before he had time definitively as a starter.
Fair.
Right. I think if Anderson was up this year, he would make more than 5 million.
No, you're right. You're right.
Normally, I'd say Markstrom would probably come in at 6.5. With the way he played this year. But that's another weird one. I think he goes short term to Vancouver, and then they make a decision between him and Demko at the expansion draft and trade one of them so they don't just lose him for nothing to Seattle or make some deal with Seattle.
Exactly.
So I think that's probably it. I think he's short term.
Yeah.
Would probably stay.
Okay. I got my last one, and then I'll let you get on to what you want to say. Taylor Hall.
Taylor Hall.
So this guy is making $6 million at the moment. Had an underwhelming season after coming off of a MVP trophy. Playing with the Arizona Coyotes, who have with the 24 playoff format have a chance of winning the cup this year. If they win the cup, does he make as much as people were speculating at the beginning of the season?
Well, if they win the cup,
yes.
I mean, like closer. But I think if he wins the cup, I think he's more likely to re-sign.
Yeah. Okay.
With the team he won it with,
yep.
Right? I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a huge Taylor Hall.
I've never been a Taylor Hall fan. I never have.
I think he had a great season with New Jersey. I might be biased, but I thought Nathan McKinnon deserved that trophy because of the amazing increase that Colorado made that year from being the worst team in NHL history post-lock, like so bad, to making the playoffs. I thought he deserved it, and Hall had that one good season. Couldn't back it up the next year. They missed the playoffs. This year, got traded. Still hasn't been that star player that many people projected. But I mean, to be fair, I mean no one has been able to do that on Arizona.
Yeah, Clayton Keller's
the same way no one has
scoring, but he's like sporadic.
Yeah, same with Nashville. It seems like there's almost like a 60 to 70 point ceiling, even for star players, just from their system or more of a defensive team or a team oriented environment.
That can be a good thing if it's because the points are being more evenly spread out throughout the team, but they're not. So that's the issue, right? If like the top scorer was getting 70 points, but then the second place was like 65, then 55, then 50, then 40, like 41. Do you know what I mean? Then that's more understandable than if it was just like 70 and then there's a bigger drop off, which it is. So
yeah, and I think like the super elite players would be able to still produce at that level. Yep. And the example I point to is Panarin. Okay. I mean, Columbus for years. I mean, he had the two highest scoring seasons in Blue Jackets history, I'm pretty sure. He had 87 points last year.
Very good.
On that defensive team-oriented Blue Jackets team. And that led to 95 in less than 70 games so far for the Rangers. So there is difference in environments, but the very elite players are still able to, kind of produce at that high level. I don't know what he would do.
I don't see him making more than 5.5.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think teams sign him for too long either, just because like there are some players that have amazing seasons and then you never hear from them again. Do you know what I mean?
I think he makes at least 6.5 or 7 though. But I mean, well, Spencer,
he was a good player before. I know I'm being biased. It's a different
financial climate, but Kevin Hayes made over $7 million for 7 years last summer.
Fair enough.
So, you know,
fair enough.
Once again, you're right. Not that we would sign him to that much, but I think $7 million, 7.5.
Okay.
Especially on a short-term deal, that's not bad for Hall. That might be like Colorado.
How many years is like a short deal for you?
Say 2.
2? Okay.
2
I could do 2 years for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Colorado would be the one because I mean that would coincide with the McCarr contract.
That'd be ridiculous.
They don't have to worry about
That'd
that.
be ridiculous.
Yeah. And I think they're all right on cap space, I believe.
That annoys me. I'm not sure if they got Taylor Hall. That would annoy me.
I don't really know because I think at this point in his career, being in the playoffs one time, I know that Hall would want to go to.
It's not entirely his fault at all either. Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like he was on a dead Edmonton team, but of course he definitely wants it.
He definitely would, but I don't know how many playoff teams have space for him or kind of have a hole on the left side that they'd like to fill. So it's a weird situation.
Wasn't he bad during the playoffs for New Jersey as well?
No, he was there. They played Tampa. Okay. They played 5 games. He helped them win their one game.
Okay. So I didn't really pay attention to that.
He had some points in the other games. Like he was their best player.
Okay. So then it's
but
fine.
That's not saying that much. But
no,
he played in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like he played.
He was noticeable.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's what I got.
I don't know. Do you have any teams you think for
Taylor Hall? You know, it'd be really interesting. Chicago, if they could somehow figure it out, even though they're strapped to the top of the cap, if they could figure it out somehow, that'd be really cool. I think that would be cool.
I think Chicago would be more interested in a defense.
I'm saying, okay. Obviously, I shouldn't be saying that because we're talking because there is a cap, but without a cap, I would prefer. And if Chicago could just go for any free agent, it would be cool to see Taylor Hall. I think with Taves and Kane, which would be interesting.
Without a cap, I'd say Edmonton.
Okay.
With
back in Edmonton, you'd go back?
Yeah, just hilarious. If we're going no cap, let's go chaos mode.
Fair enough.
Hall with McDavid and Draisaitl.
That'd be interesting.
Because, yeah, that would be pretty fun.
That'd be fun.
if only that could have happened in some alternate universe.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, you gotta love Peter Chiarelli.
Oh, you gotta love Adam Larson.
Right? And I know all Oilers fans feel the same way as me. So there you
go. Yeah. So what are you gonna say? What's the next on the schedule here?
Well, I think it's pretty similar to what we've been doing. I have some situations, not specifically free agents, but I want to see what you feel is kind of like maybe a prediction or like what you think about this player. Okay. So I'm gonna paint some situations.
All right. Should I close my eyes?
Help weigh in.
Should I?
No. No, you don't have to. Okay. So Spencer, let's go a little back and forth here. So Spencer, who do you think is most likely to win Rookie of the Year next year?
Next year.
Yeah, whenever next year is.
From this draft class, or just any rookie? Because
who do you think?
I Tim Stützle. Let's say that. I know it's Stützle. Let's just say out of the box pick because he's ranked pretty high. He's a good German center, I think, right? I think he can make an impact. If Lafreniere doesn't get off to as good as a start as, even though he's unbelievable and I don't know why he wouldn't. Obviously, the go-to pick is Lafreniere, but Stützle I think has a chance at winning it if he gets on the right team and that plays to his style. So.
Sure, he could. And obviously, as you said, Lafreniere is probably the front runner. But I'm gonna go. I think we have to think outside the draft class here.
Okay.
I think my prediction for the Calder Trophy for whenever the hell next season starts will be Kirill Kaprizov from the Minnesota Wild finally coming over after years of waiting.
I've never heard of this
Now,
guy.
that look on your face makes me very happy because you don't even know this guy.
No.
But Spencer, tell me. Oh my goodness, he is very comparable to Panarin and Kuznetsov and those guys that when they finally came over.
What league did he play in? The KHL?
KHL. I believe he was in the top. I think he was second in scoring.
Because wasn't the guy the Leafs got, wasn't he the first in scoring or something?
No, he was third. No. No, the first in scoring was Vadim Shipachyov.
Yes.
Him from his couple games with
Vegas.
But Kaprizov, he was a star at the Olympics. He's 23. He was captain of Team Russia at the World Juniors a couple years ago.
Okay.
He projects to be a top level talent.
Is he a winger?
Top line right away. He's a winger, left wing. He reminds me of a little bit of Tkachuk. Matthew Tkachuk, I would say, with a little better skating and a little more fine-tuned skill.
Okay.
He's kind of that similar size, but he's willing to get into the corners. Very skilled player.
Okay.
He's the top player outside of the NHL right now, and so I think if he comes to the NHL, which there's still a situation Minnesota's been trying to figure out. They've agreed to a contract, but you can't technically sign players right now.
Yeah. It's like a verbal agreement.
Yeah, tentatively.
Yeah. Like not officially, but like, hey, like if this happens, like, would you do this? Like, it's kind of like I'll just slide this over to you. You can look at it, and I won't look, and I don't know you're looking at it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But I think Lafreniere might be the only other rookie that is given time on a top line and getting that top line minutes. Kaprizov seems like he would play right with Fiala and Stahl, it seems like, and I think that's a pretty good situation. He'd definitely be on the power play. He'd get all that time. And he looks like a slam dunk kind of no-brainer.
Is he a shooter? Or
the fact that he can kind of do it all. He's not a specific sniper or playmaker, but his goals and assists are fairly even, I believe.
He puts up points.
Yeah, he puts up points, and I really think that whenever he kind of makes the jump, he'll be making that instant impact, kind of like.
And it's hard to put up points in the KHL as well, and if you're a young guy, especially, and then, Ovechkin in his draft year, I think had like 5 goals or something in the KHL, right? Like, and then how many does this guy have? Do you know, or you don't know? It doesn't matter. But he had 62 points in 59 games. So he probably had a bunch of goals and a bunch of assists. So that's really impressive to begin with. And then because that's a men's league, and how old is he? Like 23. 23. So he's getting to around the age you want him to be. Like that's how what kind of player he'll be. So. And
he's played professionally for a couple years now. He's able to hop right in.
Yeah. He's played on the Olympics teams,
men.
So he understands what it's like to play against NHL players.
The Olympic athletes from Russia.
Yeah.
Not Team Russia.
Yeah, sorry.
But I believe he scored the winning goal, I think. I'm going to quickly check on that.
That'd be interesting. Is he a lefty?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, so that was that's kind of my first pick.
Okay.
Kind of predicting. I know, a lot of people think Lafreniere. I love Lafreniere, but just the fact that,
it's different. It's different coming from a professional league versus coming from junior. Even if you are like as good as Lafreniere is, and we've seen I think Lafreniere is going to fit in the NHL pretty quickly. But this guy, if he's already fitting with players that have played in the NHL and more, right? So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now, Spencer, let me paint another picture for you.
Okay.
Who do you think is it one of the top? Let's go over the top candidates for the Vezina Trophy, Spencer. Who would you put in that category?
Oh God, I don't know. Vasilevsky, Markstrom, because of the season he had. I don't know what goalies had good save percentages this year. I'm not even sure.
Hellebuck had a great season. He probably would have won it if it.
Stats. Let's go. League leaders in save percentage. Thank you. Save percentage. It was Anton Khudobin with a 930.
Oh yeah, he was good.
Darcy Kemper and Tuukka Rask, Jake Allen, Pavel Francouz, Elvis Merzlikins, Connor Hellebuck, which I think would be probably the pick because I don't think any player except for Tuukka Rask on this list has played as many games as him. Tuukka Rask could win it, you know.
Yeah, but he did kind of split time with Halak, and Hellebuck had to deal with the, I guess I'm going to put in quotation, defense on the Winnipeg Jets, and still carry them to a decent playoff spot. I mean, like brutal situation, losing Bufflin, losing Trouba.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they knew what was going to happen with Bufflin, they probably don't trade Trouba.
No, definitely not. I don't think so. I don't think you pick up Neil Pionk unless you know, like you have Bufflin there. But if
hey,
I know Neil
Pionk was.
I know he was good this year, but like Neil Pionk isn't what you want to staple your back end, right? I mean,
well, he was in the he's what they got back for.
Yes, but that's what I mean. You don't trade Trouba and get Pionk if you think you're having Bufflin the next year. If you don't think you're having what am I saying?
We're gonna get some Neil Pionk hate.
I know.
Man. Like,
I don't hate the guy, but I just I don't think he's as okay. Never mind. Anyways, Hellebuck. Hellebuck. I think could win it.
Okay. And in like future seasons, who do you think like top goalies?
Vasilevsky. Vasilevsky definitely. Anderson, I think, could win it possibly.
Oh my god! So there were like no articles on the Olympic game, so I had to go find the full game, get to the end, and I was right. He did score the gold medal winning goal.
There you go. That's why you're so distracted.
Yeah, very good player.
Okay, awesome.
Kirill Kaprizov. Yeah,
awesome. So Vasilevsky, Anderson, I think could win it potentially. I mean, I wish Anaheim was good because Gibson could win it.
Oh, poor Gibson. Poor Gibson.
Because I don't think Gibson's going to win it with this Anaheim team. Who else do I think of? Great goalies. Hellebuck, who's started to come up in recent years. Winnipeg finally as a goalie. Kemper could win it if he has a season like he had at the beginning of the season, if he keeps on doing before he got injured. I think he could win it. You know, there's so many names.
Yeah, so many names. And this is my next big prediction here. Within the next 3 seasons, Igor Shesterkin for the New York Rangers will win a Vezina Trophy. Vezina Trophy. Big deal. I think it's going to have to wait for probably another season before he really gets a legitimate chance because he'll still have time with Lundqvist. Yeah. But man, he's good. And I think another thing is the Rangers are a team on the rise. They're going to get a lot of wins, which has been a lot of GM's mind. And it only takes 1 season, really, to win a Vezina. They're great goalies.
Yeah.
But it's really hard for them to win multiple Vezina trophies. It's basically who had the best season as a goaltender, not who is the best goaltender.
Yeah.
Because that usually doesn't change that much, right? Like what goalie you trust the most is who has the best season. And I think Shesterkin has a really good chance. Another person I kind of considered was Ilya Sorokin, who's a very similar name. He is for the New York Islanders.
Sorokin. I've seen him.
He's supposed to be in a lot of like prospect and goalie rankings before the season, was actually rated higher than Shesterkin. But I think, and the fact, I mean, him playing for the New York Islanders is a scary thought with that defense and their system. Yeah. But the fact that Varlamov's also signed, I think he just splits time, so it kind of decreases his chances a bit. And I really like Shesterkin's game. I mean, his highlights and everything, he's dynamic.
Russia has a lot of good goalies coming up, eh? And they have finally that right-handed guy that's supposed to go in the top 10 this year. I forget his name.
Yeah, Yaroslav Askarov.
Yeah, exactly. And he's an unbelievable Russian goalie. It's funny that when you're talking about Shesterkin there, the first thing I thought of was we have a mutual friend. His name's Ryan Thompson. When we were in grade 12, he was in love. He's a big Tampa Bay fan. He was in love with Vasilevsky, and we came up with a saying. It's Vassy for the Vez in grade 12. I think he was like 3 years from even playing a game in the NHL yet, and we were just saying that, and then he won the Vezina trophy, I'm pretty sure, didn't he? He did. I think he won the Vezina trophy.
Well, he has.
Exactly. I don't he has it before, but like I just remember just thinking, oh, that's really funny because like it's another Russian goalie coming that's young that has the potential to do that. So just Russian goalies are just ridiculous. Like you have Georgiev, even who's a great Russian goalie. You have Varlamov. What?
Georgiev, huh?
Yes.
Well, Spencer.
Yes.
You've brought me to my next point. Even though I think he's Bulgarian Russian. I think he was born Bulgarian.
Well, Komarov
Russia.
plays for Finland, but he's born where? Estonia. Yeah, Estonia.
Georgiev, unfortunately, with Shesterkin's rise, I don't think he stays on the Rangers.
I don't think so either. I don't think there's any room for him, and unless like you get rid of Lundqvist, but I don't see the Rangers doing that. And doesn't he have a no move clause?
Lundqvist? No.
Okay.
But they wouldn't dare move him. I don't think he does, but
I think New York would blow up if Lundqvist got.
But and there's. The main thought is that he goes to San Jose Sharks, who are in need of a goalie. I think
they got Aaron Dell and Martin Jones.
Yeah, with someone like Kevin Labanc going back the other way, plus something.
Defenseman?
Because Labanc didn't have a great year. This would have been early. No, Labanc's a forward.
Oh, okay. Who was I thinking? DeMello. That's what I was thinking. But I don't know why.
But I have a different theory for this, Spencer. I think you're going to see Alex Georgiev, hot take time. I think he's going to be on the Chicago Blackhawks because they're going to need a goalie. Corey Crawford's getting up there in age, didn't have the greatest season.
Got Malcolm Subban.
And the reason I think, so they need a goalie, and the reason, I mean, Georgiev's played great. I think in these couple of years. It's only 24 still, even though he's been around. I think he debuted when he was 22. Is Chicago also has someone on the trading block who's kind of getting pushed out, and I not by any fault of his own really, but that's Dylan Strome. And when I think of a potential trade, there's nothing more exciting to me than thinking of a Georgiev versus Strome trade, because the New York Rangers are in need of a second line center, and right now. That's Ryan Strome.
I was to say his brother's there.
Brother. So the potential for him to join his brother on the Rangers. And Dylan Strome's had a great season, but because the Blackhawks moved up in that draft lottery and took Kirby Dach had a pretty decent rookie season.
Oh, he's great.
He's going to be that center of the future for them.
Big guy.
Kind of Strome, and a lot of...
very similar to Strome in terms of like size and like... But not play style. I mean, and he's righty.
Yeah, he's definitely more mobile.
Too, but
He's definitely more.
Yeah,
more
I remember Strome's biggest fault was his skating at the draft. Everyone's just like, he's great at everything. He has a shot of an NHL player already, but he can't skate for his life.
Yeah, but he was playing great with DeBrincat, who also had a down year, so that didn't really help Strome. But I mean, think of Strome. I mean, he wouldn't have to skate if he's playing with Chris Kreider.
No.
He wouldn't have to be that fast.
Just
get the speed on the wing. Yeah. And Georgiev fills that need for Chicago. Strome looks like he's on the way out, according to a lot of Chicago reporters and beat writers. Around the trade deadline, they were doing rankings and stuff, and Strome was the most likely to be traded.
About the motivation you'd have, especially when being traded to play on a team with your brother. That'd be so much fun.
Yeah, I think that makes the transition so much easier.
Oh yeah, 100%. You could even live with your brother,
a new locker room,
right? Because it's family, so it just makes it so much easier to transition. 100%.
And if Chicago seems like they have the surplus of that center position, trading Strome. What's a big need for them? It's defense and goalie, but I don't really see them having a goalie coming up. So that's why I think Georgiev. I just think that would be a super cool thing to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, trades never are this exciting usually, but I just think that's something that makes sense for both sides.
Would you have to add anything to either side?
Yeah, as I was going to say, I could be convinced either way. Adding a little bit more. Maybe on the Rangers end.
I was going to say Strome.
Strome did have a good season last year, but then again, goalies. It's hard to value a goalie versus a player a lot of the time. So those trades are sort of rare. Yeah. So this is just a cool thing I think would potentially work out.
It's especially hard. It's especially hard to find a 6'3" centerman too, right? Who can shoot the puck and play on your power play. So I mean that's why I think Strome is a little bit more valuable than Georgiev. I think it wouldn't be more than like a fifth or something with Strome, but that's still that's still enough. I think would be a fair trade off.
Yeah, and I mean that would just be so cool. I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And it fills that need for the Rangers. The advantage adds Strome potentially down the middle. It's pretty good. Well, Filipino might be there as well. Ryan Strome is a winger as well. He can play on the wing. So, so now let's talk playoffs a little bit. There's one team, as we went over the playoff bracket, there's one team I don't think makes the playoffs next year. And they were pretty high on there. This is going to ruffle some feathers, and you can rightfully disagree with this, but this is just my personal feelings on this team. It's the Edmonton Oilers, and I know it's tough because Connor McDavid's there, but this is a hot take time. These takes are real hot. I don't see it as a team consistently. I don't love their prospects coming up. Like Bouchard and Broberg are the two guys that are supposed to be on their defense, but there's issues with both. Well, yeah, but Yamamoto's kind of made the jump, I'd say. But I don't think they have the consistent scoring depth. I don't love their defense, and I don't love their goaltending. They obviously have the two best players in the world, which can carry them for a while. Hell, it might mean that they do super well in these short and condensed playoffs because McDavid and Draisaitl go off. But we've also seen, even when they're playing well, if one of those guys gets injured, it could spell disaster. And yeah, and with Vancouver's on the rise in that Pacific Division. I think Calgary's still a decent team. Vegas is there. They're lucky that all California teams are really bad right now, but that might be their biggest strength of making it into the playoffs. I think they're going to fall apart again.
I think Edmonton. I think they have some issues in terms of really high ceiling prospects, and I think they really gave away a lot of that with like trying to get players like Anthony Ciu, all these players to like try to go for this playoff run and playoff push to especially not even to win the cup necessarily, but even just try to make the playoffs. I think that was the biggest goal for the Edmonton Oilers, was if they made the playoffs, then their fans would at least be happy, because they couldn't. You can't go an NHL season without the best player in the league making the playoffs. That just doesn't make sense. He doesn't have to win every year, but not making it just doesn't seem right. So I think that's the biggest thing with Edmonton. But I think they're pretty screwed in terms of the future, especially on their back end, like you said. I mean, they got Bouchard, who I know, but I don't even know the other guy.
Broberg.
Philip Broberg. Actually, I do know that
They
name.
seem like they have opposite issues, where Broberg's a fantastic skater, is just not mature defensively and stuff, and takes some stupid penalties. His IQ's been questioned, versus Bouchard, who not a great skater, but put up a lot of points in junior. But for me watching it, it seemed like it was more the fact that he was bigger and stronger and more mature than those players, and that's not going to be the case in the NHL.
Kind of the Aaron Ekblad effect.
Yeah, a little bit, but less skilled than Ekblad.
No, I was just saying, like, in terms of the impact he had, his body had on his competition. Yeah, his development had on his competition. Sorry, physical development.
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say something where I really wanted to talk about it, considering we're Leafs fans, is what the heck is gonna happen to Tyson Barrie? I mean, I know he's gonna move out almost inevitably, but what do you see happening there? Because I feel like he didn't have a bad season in terms of points. I mean, he put up points this season, but he wasn't what Toronto Maple Leafs fans hoped, especially when we traded Kadri away. I mean, I think the biggest piece for that trade for Leafs fans in terms of their thinking about it is Kerfoot. I think Kerfoot really made that trade for them and made it say, okay, Barrie is fine in the trade with Kerfoot instead of Kerfoot's in the trade with Barrie now, because of the way he played in the first little bit and didn't score a game until how many games in the season. So.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think Kerfoot even had his struggles. He started off really well and struggled, but I don't know.
But then he got that $3.5 million contract extension.
Yeah, but they signed that right after he got traded.
Yeah, fair enough.
I wonder, without thinking too much about the Leafs defense situation, whether he would sign a 1 year, $1 million. Because I don't know what the market...
As a tryout, kind of?
Yeah, I don't know what the market's like on him right now and how many teams would be willing to pay a lot, especially with the situation.
Kind of like a Tyler Ennis kind of thing, but better, obviously.
Sure, and I think the benefit of staying with the friends that he's made in Toronto, like Austin and, those kind of guys, he seems to get along great. He seems like a great guy off the ice in the room and stuff. The guys like to be around him, so I wonder if if the price isn't excessive, if they would consider keeping him around for a year, just to help bridge the gap and not rush their young guys into roles they're not ready for, which happened a bit with Liljegren for sure this year. Even Sandin, I don't think was ready for top 4 minutes, which you had to play at one point. So.
I don't think he was ready for top 4 either. I thought him on the bottom pairing was fine. Sandin,
for the most part,
I didn't like Liljegren as much as I did to Sandin. But I think that's just because he's young and it's his first taste in he dipped his toes in the NHL. I mean, he's got a lot to learn, right? I mean, he was one of the youngest players to play in AHL history, wasn't he? Or he was the
Probably.
youngest player to lead the AHL in points as a defenseman. I think that's what it was.
Who?
I think because he was Liljegren.
I don't.
Or
I
don't know.
Liljegren, I don't remember him putting up points that much.
Okay.
He was more defensively sound.
I don't know anything.
But
It's been too long.
He did play when he was young, for sure.
Yeah, it's been too long, man. I need hockey back. I need to stimulate the hockey brain again. But yeah, I feel like I'd want Tyson Barrie back just because of the chemistry I feel like he has on the team. and obviously you don't want to bring a player just because of his chemistry on the team, but he also has playing ability. He does have the ability to put up points when put in the right situations. I think the only problem with Tyson Barrie is that he put up a lot of his points in Colorado, I believe, on the power play, on the first power play, and he has no spot there, really, on the Leafs' first power play because of Morgan Rielly.
I mean, he took over for Rielly, though. Since
Did he?
Yeah.
Well, when Rielly got injured, but when Rielly's not injured.
When Keith came in, though, he took his spot, yeah. Because Rielly
was
he
struggling. Did, you're right, because he scored in his first game because Keith put him on the power play.
Well, it wasn't a power play goal, but he just decided to start playing from there.
Fair enough.
Yeah, he would be on the first power play over Rielly at this point, I believe. But man, he's got to stop taking
a healthier Rielly.
Yeah. He's got to stop taking point shots though on the power play. That's just the bane of my existence. Like, come on, man.
The slap shots, slap shots from the point, hitting the shins of the defenders.
You got Austin Matthews and John Tavares on the ice, closer to the net in better scoring position. They need to be the ones shooting the puck.
Use them. Yeah. Use your shooters.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense. So, yeah. What else you got?
Wow. I'll end with a big situation here. And now, I'm not saying that this will happen. Just imagine this little situation here, if you can.
Imagine. Oh no, it's imagination.
Yeah. Okay, you close your eyes for this. I'm gonna paint a scenario, Spencer. So.
Okay, this is a big one.
Which conference did I say was the most competitive right now? With a lot of great teams. Eastern Conference, right? So, with so many great teams in the mix, teams on the rise, going to get better. That means some teams won't make the playoffs.
Yes.
And how disappointing would it be if last year's President's Trophy winning 62-win Tampa Bay Lightning missed the playoffs? How disappointing would that be? I'm not saying this would happen. Just painting a situation. They missed the playoffs.
Oh my God.
That's what lets you get hurt. That could happen. Or, like has happened in the past and at the early start like point of the season, they go into a slump and they, do not reach expectations because expectations are so high. There's so much pressure on that group to finally get over a hurdle.
Yeah, it's like the Leafs in many ways, like that. But
and so how would they respond to that?
I think this isn't the way I would respond to it, but I think the only way that history shows GMs to react in certain situations like this, especially after one season messing up, is blowing it all up, and I think that's what Tampa would do.
But
what happened?
Is it easier to blow up a full team or just the coach?
Oh, firing the coach.
Now, even if this,
because I was thinking of Chicago.
If this somehow
I was thinking of Chicago, but yes, okay.
If this somehow happened, I still personally wouldn't do this, and I don't think Steve Yzerman would have done this either. But Julien Brisebois is now the GM of Tampa Bay since Yzerman's back in Detroit. Okay. And I think he's a little less patient than Yzerman, trading those first-round picks and prospects for Coleman and Gaudreau this year. I could see him firing John Cooper, seeing that he's not the one for that group.
There's been talks about that in the past.
Making what I would say is a huge mistake in the process because I think Cooper is an exceptional coach.
You're right.
And as a result, what teams would be in need of a coach next year? Maybe a team that has never had a coach, like Seattle. I'm saying John Cooper somehow becomes coach of Seattle. Now, if this comes true,
I like that.
This would be incredible.
That you took me on.
Exactly. I'll tell you a little story. Because originally, I think I've mentioned this to you. My first pick months ago was Mike Babcock for the Seattle job.
Yeah.
This was around the time when the Leafs were struggling. I thought he would move on from there, be able to construct his own team in Seattle. They wanted a veteran coach. They want a coach with experience. That's what they've said. But this is obviously before all the allegations came out, the stuff that he did with Mitch Marner and other players
Fucking
not liking him.
lunatic.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, I said he's a fucking lunatic.
Yeah, it's so I don't know if that's the greatest way to start a franchise, but if John Cooper's there, I think they would immediately take him.
I don't see why you would even question anyone else.
But
like John Cooper, wow, that would be really interesting. Yeah, because if you can't, like you were saying, I was on the right track until I said trade players, but then what do you do if you can't trade the whole team?
Yeah, you can't.
You trade the coach, but you can't trade a coach, you fire a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So
there you go.
That makes sense. That's a really good shout, actually. If the lottery's fall...
It takes a lot, though. It takes Tampa missing the playoffs.
No, that's what I mean. If the lottery's balls fall, then I could definitely see that happening.
And they should 100%. Still be a good team in the future. But Boston.
Tampa does seem like the team that's getting pretty fed up, and that would do something like that. Now that you're talking about it, because I feel like they're so stressed about getting over their past mistakes that they'll do anything, and they'll try to make irrational decisions, and they will not try to, but they will make irrational decisions. So, yeah.
But yeah, well, think about, how far did the St. Louis Blues go in the playoffs the year before they won the Cup, Spencer? Do you know?
Got kicked out in the first round, didn't they?
Actually, trick question, they didn't make the playoffs.
Oh.
They
I was like, they definitely didn't go far, because I don't remember them very much.
They played against Colorado in the last game of the season for a playoff spot, which is an awesome game. That was like essentially a wild card game.
That's a cool
Colorado
game.
Beat them to climb into the playoffs. St. Louis missed the playoffs, then won the Cup. That's how.
And they were in last place in January too.
After all they made some trades, free agency signings. That's how much parity there is in the league now. Great teams can struggle. Teams that struggled in the past can end up winning the Cup.
Washington didn't win the Cup until 2 years ago. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they were always around it.
They were always good until they always won President's trophies. They were unbelievable teams. They always had a perennial 45-plus goal scorer on their team. There was nothing wrong with them until they hit the playoffs in the second round in Pittsburgh, and then see you later. Well, not slap, because they didn't get swept. They game sevens a lot of the time, but still, that happens to good teams, and that's the thing about the league that's interesting but really annoying sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's fun as a fan because you always have a chance. This year,
but it's also devastating as a fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 24 teams apparently are all good enough to be in the playoffs this year. If you believe what the league says. But there are only 16 spots. Some decent teams are going to miss for injuries, just slumping players. It's just what happens sometimes.
Yeah. Slow starts out of the gate.
Yep.
There's all these things that could happen. So, yeah. Well, anyways, thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Seric Show. I have been Spencer Van Winters.
I've been Eric.
And thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and see you next week.